I mean, I didn't come prepared. I've got Kylo.
No? Okay.
But yeah, anyway.
Hello and welcome to the Last Jedi debate. We're trying to think of a better name for it, but I'll just stick for that now. It is the dark side versus the light side.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just happy with the movie side, basically. We're going to discuss the 5 most contentious things coming out of The Last Jedi. I'm Adam Wilborn from Whatculture, joined by Adam, Scott, James and Josh. Guys, let's have at it. Let's start off with the first big point. I'm just going to say 2 words. Flying Leia. I'll let the dark side begin with this one.
Before we start, can I just say I really want to be on that side of the table.
I
really want to be there.
Well,
like,
join us.
I can't.
You can still turn.
I just can't. Like, yeah, Mary Poppins. I don't really know what the defense of that bit is. Like, it's a weird thing to talk about because obviously the Carrie Fisher issue is much bigger than just what Princess Leia's role in a film is. But it kind of felt like there were better ways to tease you with her demise than to have a Mary Poppins her way back into a spaceship.
And regardless of that, the way that they do it, the way that it's shot,
It looks silly, yeah.
A lot of our theatre did laugh, and it's not that her flying through space is inherently a terrible thing. It's the way that it's shot. It's the bit when it cuts to the wide shot and she starts to fly forward, and it literally is reminiscent of Mary Poppins.
I put it on Twitter. I'm doing ups and downs later on, and I put that bit on Twitter. Like, is that silly or is that like a really good moment? And like more than one person has replied saying their cinema burst out laughing at it.
Well, I can confirm that our cinema did as well.
I don't want to be here. I want to be there, but they're not making it
I want to
easy.
be here.
And Mary Poppins in space was bad.
Yep.
Sorry.
Please defend this.
So first of all, I disagree with Scott's comment about how it was shot. I thought it was a beautiful little scene, backed up by, obviously Carrie Fisher's death makes it more emotional. Mm-hmm. But I think there's emotion in that area because it's Leia. We're coming towards the end of the Old Guard. We've been waiting decades for Leia to use the Force. We've had like little teasers of that when she sensed Luke before, but like this is like her big Force moment. That's like incredible to witness.
Do you think the fact that it's her big Force moment covers over the reality of the way that it comes across? Like the fact that she's using the... Because I did think that. I was like, oh, that looks really cool.
She flies through space, lads.
I know, but the fact that you get to see Leia use the Force, was that enough to be like, this is so cool, regardless of then the fact that it then cuts and the way that it's shot is a little bit off-kilter, shall we say?
To me, I just really don't get... Like you say, it's silly. That wide shot was one of like the most memorable parts of the film. For
memorable, certainly. Yeah.
But in like a good way, because it comes straight after that sort of really like poignant close up of her, like sort of crystallizing.
Yeah,
and then
which I wish that they stuck
that was
with.
Great.
Right.
Yep.
Do you think the fact that she's obviously sadly passed away adds to that scene, or maybe takes away from
it? It adds to the initial bit where she's floating in space, and you sort of think, hang on, is something happening here? It adds to that. Like I was totally like, oh my god, like I was in the moment perfectly, and then it just cut to a Mary Poppinsing her way through the debris field. I was like, that is so stupid, and it ruined it for me.
And I think for fans that you're aware that you think that, like, I mean, whatever, how much you've read into the fact that you know there are certain scenes coming in episode 9 with Leia, and you sort of think like, oh, is this how they're doing it? Like when she gets sucked out into space, like it's like, oh, what, really? Okay, I guess we're doing this then. And then the music comes back in and they start to slow things down and go, okay, I can accept that. And she starts to freeze over and whatever. And then they pull it all back, and it's the jarring sense of like, this is how we're bringing her back and she's okay, is that she flies back to the ship. And it's like, there are ways to do that. You could have cut around it.
I disagree that it's a structural problem, Scott, because I think if you cut that bit out and just had her straight into a coma off the explosion, you rob her of that hero moment, which I think a lot of people will
do you think it's a hero moment?
I do. I think a lot of people will as well. I think it's going to be quite divisive. I think people will think it's silly.
The thing everyone's skipping over is what should have happened is she pulled herself through, and then she got to that door, and they opened it to sort of save her. Everybody in that corridor should have been immediately sucked out of space.
No.
Everyone should have died as a result.
She got gutted, they'll fly past her.
Yeah.
But she's fine. Because obviously this is going to be one of the things, all of these are going to be debated out in the comments, but like, yeah, there is a way to look at that scene as like angelic, and it's like, look at her being, you know, like carefully getting back to the ship, and it's meant to be this beautiful moment. Literally my problem is the way that it's shot. Yeah. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I think there's a way for it to not be necessary, but it's the way that it's shot. It's literally that cut to the wide angle, because that's when everyone laughs.
You said the way you would have done it is that when it stays on that shot of her, like really close up, and you just see the stuff moving
like behind
sort
her.
of past her, and you sort of have to figure out on yourself, like, is she like moving towards the ship? And then she is.
Think opens her eyes again.
I
she's
just
back
think
on the
that
ship, like...
cut to a shot of a, again, Mary Poppinsing her way through space was silly. We spent a solid 15 minutes on this.
Yeah, let's move.
This is going to be long.
Right, let's move on to point number 2. This is a pretty vague one, but I'm sure there's lots
got a lot of
points
examples
you want to go through. Just general plot holes or perhaps leaps in logic. I'm going to start with the dark side again, because I think they set up the points pretty well for you to defend.
Where do you want to start with this? Do you want to go with Finn and Rose?
No, I think that's sort of more. That's not so much a plot hole as it was like a sort of a flaw
Leaps
in the
in
writing.
logic, though.
Leaps in logic, though. The timeline didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yes, now this is a very good point, because this has been already argued in the office quite a lot already in terms of Rey's training.
Yes.
And then the
If you just go with what the film presents to you,
yes,
the information it gives you, they add 18 hours, a few left, plus a little bit at the start of the film as well, which means that going purely off what the film showed you, Luke and Rey, that takes place over 2 days, which seems a very short amount of time given how much happened.
And how much weight is then put on her being the next Jedi, like, which is literally what Luke says at the end. He's passing the torch to her.
Yeah.
Like that whole training thing was rushed. Like that's another point for pacing later on. But in terms of the leaps in logic, like they literally say we have 18 hours left.
Yeah.
And I know your defense is going to be that they could be separate timelines, but they link up on Crate because she's in the Falcon. So like they are concurrent.
I
necessarily.
disagree.
No, that's they'd be concurrent at the end. It could be staggered, but like the film doesn't. It doesn't.
We don't
give you
see
any of
anything else. Like we see those literal 2 scenes of her training, and we see one nightfall, like one night.
So we'll leave I think we'll come back to the implications of the training and Rey's
Okay,
like
yeah.
into
That's
the
different.
Jedi. But on a pure timeline level, this very much to me seemed like 2 different timelines.
Yeah, okay.
Rey's picks up immediately after the Force Awakens, whereas the stuff with the First Order and the Resistance seems to have taken place a little while later, because we see Hux regroup, we see them get on the ship, we get to see the chase.
Finn is still under.
I was going to say, do you
Yeah,
think
but-
Finn's recovery
That's
is almost a point to you guys in terms of, you know, he's not going to recover in a day or 2 days
Yeah.
from what's happened to him. He's
Why
in
not?
that
Why not?
chamber.
Why not?
It hurts, doesn't it?
But just the problem with the timeline thing is you could make a very good case for it being like, well, this takes place over X amount of time, and that they run concurrently, but not over the same sort of time frame. But
That's not presented
why?
in the film very well.
The film doesn't present you with that at all.
Even with that means that the window that Rey and Luke are given to train is the amount of time it takes Finn to recover, because then we start watching what happens after Finn comes back. So that's the timeline that Rey was on the island with Luke. And even then, the scenes that we see as an audience are still 2 scenes. Her sitting on the plinth and her practicing with her bow staff, and then the saber, which as a filmmaker or whatever, like the way that comes across in film isn't a passage of time. It looks rushed and there's not enough there.
Would it have been clunky if they'd have had some sort of line to Finn when he wakes up where someone says, "Oh, you've been under for X amount of time"? Would that have explained it? Would that have been really clunky?
At least that would have been clunky, but at least that would have been something.
I could sit here and say, no, it definitely all happens at the same time. It's definitely over 2 days. And there would be no fact you could give back. No, because this happens, because that happens. There's no way you can prove it either way.
You just have to assume.
It's just kind of, it feels a bit lazily done, I guess.
It just feels rushed. Like the whole trailer built up Rey and Luke training together, and that is barely the crux of the film. Like it's like a third of it. And even then, the stuff that you get, like I said, doesn't have a
It
passage
doesn't
of time.
even really train her.
No, I know, that's
Sits her
another
on a
thing.
rock.
So the rebuttal for the timeline, though, is that it makes more sense if you think of it as 2 separate ones. But the problem that we have is that there's not enough evidence to literally pin that down.
Why does it matter that Rey's training takes over such a small amount of time? Because to me, her training is far from complete.
Yeah.
She's has not mastered the
But
Force or anything.
I mean, this is another
It's
point.
like what
But
we saw
then,
with Luke in Empire.
Because she's brickmate.
no, but
She's brickmate. She wastes a load of them guards and moves all them rocks.
that's a very specific point, though, because like the crux of the whole new trilogy is her journey, and she is the next Jedi. And like if you're gonna try and put that much weight on her, Luke dies in this movie. Like you're passing on the torch.
Oh yeah, spoilers by the way.
Yes. Waiting for that at the beginning. But, and if you're gonna do that, then you need a certain level of whatever the hell you want to call it, cinematic weight to pass over to Rey, and it's not there.
You have to buy her as somebody with this level of power and understanding of the Force, and the timeline thing doesn't bother. I don't care how long that takes. I don't care whether the timelines are concurrent.
I'm going to spend 10 minutes on
That doesn't matter, but the problem with it is if you want to buy Rey as this, like, she is now the focal point of the Jedi story arc in Star Wars films going forward.
That training montage should have meant something.
I don't buy it now.
Same.
It just feels like she's just woken up one day and can do all this, which feels...
Which is one of the biggest complaints from Force
Yeah.
Awakens, that she just randomly decides to do the Jedi mind trick and it works, and then she randomly just everything just, she wants to do it, so she does it. Like, if she wanted to breathe underwater, she would think hard enough.
Not
and she'd do
angry,
it.
I'm just disappointed. Like,
That's the biggest thing, is that we're so deflated, and there doesn't seem to be any, like, yeah, you can go, well, obviously there should be separate timelines. Hux and Kylo gets his scar, there's obviously time passed, but it's not enough. And even then, that time that's passed, they didn't make the best use of it by showing a better training sequence with Rey and Luke.
The thing with her being able to sort of do everything is sort of... I don't get that at all.
I think it's very overblown. Like,
Yeah. We see in The Force Awakens that she's adept with like a staff. We see her
Yeah.
in
Oh, I know
this
she can
training with a
fight.
saber.
Yeah.
And Luke even says that he's only seen this sort of potential in the Force like one time before, like
Yeah.
that raw
And,
energy
like,
for
but,
it.
but the actor stuff is more centered around Kylo Ren and Rey's relationship, which I think is far more important to the film.
I agree with that.
And
I agree with
and-
that, yeah.
completely.
And far more interesting than spending that time on the training montages.
Yep. Like, the problem is, there's just so many interesting things in this film.
They're not fleshed out or
and
anything.
yet they have to accommodate so many uninteresting things. We'll get onto the flipping casino thing in a minute. You were like, oh, well, maybe there wasn't time to put like a thing explaining how Luke trains her and all this. Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Just don't show me Antonio Banderas at a craps table for like 20 minutes.
And don't have that stupid CG animal chase, but we'll get to that. Yeah.
Antonio Banderas?
Any more?
Benicio del Toro.
Totally someone will get it.
Let's move on to what's been described as sort of tonal inconsistency. Now,
This is more you.
I'll-
I'm on board. with it.
before
Okay.
you have at it, I've for one quite enjoyed it, and I think
Yeah.
there's been echoes of people comparing it to sort of Marvel in terms of it's got
Move along.
it's been compared in terms of Marvel, the light-hearted alongside all your action and drama and what have
All right,
you.
Kylo.
What did you think of it? All the jokes and the porgs and what have you?
I think that's.
Oh, we're doing porgs.
Porgs are totally fine.
Oh, come on, man.
Come on. Yeah, I think that's Star Wars. Like, I think Star Wars does have those serious elements. It's got some dark elements, but it's also very funny. There's like a lot of humour in those original films. There's a lot
I
of
liked the little
There's-
jokes. I
Did
would
you
say.
did
Lot
you
of
do
silliness,
did you
just-
do what I did about halfway through the film? I can't remember which joke it was, but it was quite a serious scene, and there was quite a funny joke came out of nowhere. My initial reaction was, "Wow, I know Scott's in the room next to me right
Yeah.
now. I bet he's furious."
I did think that a lot throughout. That Scott is going to hate this.
So
and
okay,
it
so
proved.
there is a style of comedy that obviously is everywhere in the Marvel movies. It's not in it's not in stuff that the Russos have done. Like Winter Soldier and Civil War is way more considered. But there's a style of comedy that's in all of these movies where it's just like, let's stop the scene and acknowledge either a costume or take something literally that wasn't supposed to be taken literally. We'll just stop. We'll have a nervous little joke and, oh, is that what you meant? Oh, right, okay, and move on. And it's so grating. It's in everything and it's infuriating. And like, man, it's all over this thing. And like when what's his face? When Poe like rings Hux and he's all like,
that was really good.
no, it wasn't. It was shite. And there's that. And like the bit when if we're doing this, I'll f***ing do it. The whole thing, right? The whole f***ing thing, right? When Rey's like, oh, I'm gonna get trained, right? And she's sitting there, and he's like, oh, reach out. And she goes, oh, do you mean with my arm? No, of course I f***ing don't. You already used the Force before. She already used the Force in Episode 7. She f***ing closed her eyes and she channeled the Force. So why the flying f***ing piss would she think that she has to reach out? Oh yeah, we all thought that was hilarious.
Are you editing this? 'Cause, like,
No, I'm not.
You leave that in. Oh god, it's infuriating. It's everywhere.
I was disappointed by the film, but at least it gave me like.
Do you know what was
proper
good?
laugh.
When Kylo and Rey first talked to each other, I was like, oh, that's a really cool, innovative, new idea for the series. We've never seen two characters, apart from Vader and Luke, talk to each other and discuss the realities of dealing with the light side and the dark. And then what immediately happens after that? We see a little bunch of random, hilarious prequel-style f***ing aliens who come in and, oh, it's really funny because they've got little costumes on, they're rebuilding the damage or whatever. Does that come from? And why was that there? Just for the sake of having a little bar, because God forbid you feel something without taking it out of the scene. We can have a little hilarious little moment for the kids.
I think the problem, the reason this doesn't connect with you is you've just said, God forbid we feel something.
Yes.
It's okay to feel happy.
Not when it's manufactured,
You can laugh,
like,
Scott.
here is where you laugh, right here, and then stop, because the music's changed and we need to have a serious moment again. Okay, and don't stop that joke here, and then keep going
How
again.
does that differ to the film going, this is where you feel sad right here?
Because it's so, like I said, it's so manufactured, it's so synthetic, it's the laziest way to do comedy.
But is it
all
not
the
the
emotions.
2017 version of like C-3PO almost? Like in
He's
the
still in there.
originals, I know, yes, but in the originals, he's there as a little bit of comic relief and
My point, okay, my point isn't that it should be like super serious or whatever. My point is the way that these jokes are done. You can see the exact jokes in all the Marvel movies, minus the Russos ones. It's the same stuff. That scene when Leia says to 3PO, like, hey, wipe that look off your face. Good, well written, cool. But the bit when, like I said, that bit when Rey like takes it seriously, reach out or whatever, it's cringy. And it doesn't need to, it doesn't need to be in there. Like, it just takes you out the moment. And you know when they're coming as well. Once you've noticed that style of humor is what a filmmaker is going for, they're so obvious. And every scene that like is building a certain way, you know a little self-aware little Bob's gonna come out of nowhere. And it's like that bit when like Rey's like to Kylo, hey, put a shirt on or whatever. I was like, I knew that was coming.
Hang on 1 second.
Right.
How ripped?
That
I
man,
did
oh,
not
God,
expect
my
that.
Absolutely hench.
that man is
That
Grant
man
Skeeter
is-
Willie.
Yeah, he is.
He's a henchman. But
We can all agree on that.
regardless, like all those moments come out of
I'm
nowhere.
there praying it's CGI. No, that can't be real. That's got CGI his body.
Could I get a couple of examples where a joke came in the middle of a serious scene and ruined it for you, just so I know?
Yeah, yes. Well, every one of them, but the one when Rey's getting taught, like straight away, like
Right.
search your feelings, reach out, and she just does that. Like,
That felt very Star Wars to me, though.
How?
That really fits with the tone of the training. Like it fits with like when you see Yoda training Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got loads of elements of silliness there. Like,
you have the
Yoda's
Muppet Show.
like, yeah, but like Yoda's like there's a lot of humor in that scene.
Yes,
And-
but not during the training itself. Like, there's no part where like anything is taken too literally or it's slapstick or whatever. Like, there's no part of that. Like, yes, Yoda being a Muppet and smashing R2 is hilarious. I love that scene. But like, yeah, the bit when he actually starts training is meant to be, hey, this matters, and they treat it seriously. So she's already channeled the Force, closed her eyes, and used that stuff in Force Awakens to beat Kylo. We know what she's supposed to do.
When she did that, she did literally reach out with her hand though to try and get the lightsaber.
No. The bit when she's blocking him and he says, you need a teacher, you need to use the Force, and he goes, oh yeah, the Force, and she does it properly. Like, there's no reason why she would then be like, oh, reach out means with your arm.
Because
Like,
she's like listening
no.
she's listening to
Right.
our teacher.
Yeah.
She doesn't
Ah,
I know
it's-
this.
Luke's death, it's this incredible use of the Force and to project himself. So then to go back at this old man who hasn't tapped into the Force in a lot of years, he's getting back in, he's doing this incredible thing to save Leia, to save Rey, to save the Resistance, and inspire hope across the galaxy, which was the whole central theme of the movie.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, you've got Luke's story coming full circle. You know, obviously he is a new hope, and once again his end is being a hope again and giving new hope to the galaxy. And you've got going from the farm boy on Tatooine looking out at the twin sunsets to this old man who's been the hero and lost and came back and looking out at the sunset again. Like that's just
I love that. Like, that's a perfect justification for that. And him becoming the New Hope is brilliant. But I don't know, man. In the moment, like it just seems kind of thrown together. Like it's just, I can't get over the reaction I had in the moment, which was where he, his cape thing flies off and he dies, and I went, oh okay. Like,
Is it
I guess
the worst thing that it's not even making you upset about it? It's just sort of
yeah. It was like, well, I guess that's what we should do then. And it was like,
What you're saying there
That's
is pretty
good,
much
though.
exactly where I am. Like I said at the start, I want to be on that side of the table because I want to have really enjoyed the latest Star Wars
Same.
film, and I'm still trying to like ration all this in my head, like work out exactly why. But my initial feelings to so much of it was just. And
Well,
like, when
that's-
I left the cinema, I was like, "Oh, great! I've just seen the new Star Wars film. What?
the
Why am
text
I not
you-
more buzzing?"
what you sent me was, I can't exactly the wording, but it was very much like, I think I enjoyed that.
I
Like,
said, "Did I enjoy that?"
yeah, and you were like, mate, was that just me? And I was like, nah, man. Like, it's very well. We can get on. This is our final point. Is
Yes.
just the overall pacing.
I have a question for you both, specifically James. If the whole point of this film is it's a new hope, they're giving the galaxy a new hope that this evil can be defeated. How do they give the galaxy a new hope that this evil can be defeated?
what do you mean?
Well, they run away from them 3 times, and Luke Skywalker dies.
He's a projection, and like
What part of this story spreads across the galaxy and gives, like, they blew up Starkiller Base. Surely that should have been the catalyst for that's their ultimate weapon gone. They can be defeated. What about this story inspires the galaxy to rise up against the First
I
Order?
think with showing that you can fight back, that even someone like Rose, a lowly resistance worker who is apparently unskilled, can rise up, join the fight.
That's why I love the Rey's parents reveal as well, that she was just
Yeah,
nobody, because
she's no
if
one.
it sort of gives that message that if she can be it, this sort of force power, this sort of
What's she done?
Rey?
Yeah. Like,
Rey.
what part of the story spreads? Like, Rey can do it. Do what?
Lift a
She
lot of
saved
rocks.
the whole resistance, yeah, by lifting the rocks.
There are a lot of rocks everywhere. I mean, the thing is, like, yeah,
The story's going to spread across the galaxy that Rey lifted some rocks, and then that's going to bring down the first.
it is a very the
What-
point that you're.
what is the message? What is the
The
new
thing,
hope?
like, right, okay, I'm with you, like, because, like, if you take, like, well, what, like, the thing is, like, the story, the reason that Luke's a myth in the new trilogy is, like, everyone knows that he's the one rebel pilot that brought down the Death Star. That's the story that goes out and inspires hope and makes him a legend. If you say, well, what
Even that
on
turned
that
into
level,
myth, didn't it?
yeah, what on that level is present in these new movies? What story inspires hope? Why does that final scene even exist?
Ray killed Snoke. I know she
No, she
didn't.
didn't.
I know
Can't-
she
can't
didn't,
really.
but
And even then, who the hell's going to tell that story?
But yeah, I suppose.
Praetorian guards.
Because that's what Kylo said happened. So
But even then, he's
I know
not
you're
gonna
have
pass
to. I
that
don't know
up.
how that's going to transition from the yeah.
Even then, like, that's
Imagine that when
you know.
Rey gets back at them. So I've been up to much. Well, Snokes dead. What? Yeah,
You
coming
She's
up.
gone.
you did
Coming
that.
up.
Yep.
Yeah, I went.
Yeah,
I went
definitely.
to. I went to the ship, and got in, and then so there's Snoke. Boop. That's it.
Tripped him
As
up.
you were.
He hit his head. Dead.
Who was he? Where'd he come from? That's just.
This is something we're going to get.
That's a different point.
Yeah,
no, it
this
is,
point
Now
one.
we want to lead it because we want to talk about the whole pacing of the movie because we've discussed sort of other things, maybe taking precedence over storylines that you wanted to see more of. But very quickly, just to spice up the comment section that little bit more, I want you to raise that point you mentioned to me
Go on.
regarding
Oh,
Finn
God.
and Rose
Well-
and the battle.
Yeah, this probably should have been in our leaps in logic, but it can go in the in the wider point about the pacing in the middle act because all of Finn and Rose's story was barely relatable and like. Yeah, the point that I made to you, which I said was a huge leap in logic, is like Rose and Finn both crash right next to the First
Right
Order
in front of it,
Armada,
yeah.
they're right next to them. Luke and Kylo are fighting each other, and then we cut and
And there's
Finn.
all the walkers just like.
Yeah,
in a
all the
big
walkers.
line.
They can. One guy could have leaned out a window and gone shot and just shot him, but nothing.
Just dragged about just
It-
around the fight.
Yeah, the fight
don't
is
mind
ongoing.
us.
And so the resistance base is right there. The fight is ongoing, and he has to drag Rose back to the base around the fight as it goes on. Like that was a weird thing that I was just like, where are you? Where is this happening?
Let's talk just generally now about the pacing of the film. Then. Now,
We could talk about
who went to see this film at midnight?
all of us did.
Okay, I didn't. I thought the pacing was all right. Is that a relative to me being there?
Possibly.
all the
I
time?
felt like the middle dragged quite a lot, but that could very easily be because we'd been away for 3 days doing a bloody wrestling show.
Yeah.
It's about wrestling on here. There are two specific things here. One, the Finn Rose thing was a massive deviation that again felt pointless. It was like something for those characters to do. Even if you're gonna do that, make it Finn and Poe who go on that expedition together. We already know they're bros. Just give us that. Poe ends up with nothing to do for the whole movie. And the other thing is that the Resistance fleet are just left hanging in space for the majority of the movie, and it's just so boring. And then all the stuff with Finn's side of things is the casino bite stuff and the animal chase and all the stupid prequel aliens and all that kind of crap. Like all the thing of like, oh look, it's a hilarious alien laughing. Like right, okay. Like
That's Star Wars, though.
it's
That's
prequel
very-
Star Wars. It's prequel Star Wars more than it's the OT.
I hate to tell you this, but prequel Star Wars is still Star Wars.
True, but
there,
if,
man.
but if you're gonna like, if
It's
you're
like,
gonna
that,
take
it's like that creepy uncle at the dinner table. You might not like him, but he's
It's
he's
true,
there.
but
part of the
he's family.
there are
And
things
it's
to,
Christmas after all.
there are things to bring back from the prequel movies that would completely work. We've already seen in Battlefront 2
Jar
that the technology and the worlds and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that stuff works. A lot of the iconography works, but some of the stuff, again, it's a comedy point. But like some of the stuff with the whole casino thing was pointless. The whole animal
I
chase
agree
was
with that.
pointless.
I agree with that.
Like it's just
You could
something
have
for
cut
those
that
characters
entire
to do.
thing out of the film.
Yeah.
I'll agree that it's the weaker part of the film. Not bad, but it's obviously weaker because we don't have Rey, Kylo Ren, and Luke there, which is the more interesting story. But I'm not saying,
It's
but,
not weak because it's got bad characters. It's weak because it doesn't add anything, surely.
no, but I'm saying like, that's part of the narrative as well. So I do think it's weaker, but I think it still adds something because I think it ties into trying to spread hope through the galaxy. Again, I keep going back to that, but it's such a core theme of this film.
Getting arrested in a casino brings
No,
hope to
it's
the
No, it's
when
when-
they encounter the kids. And
I think kind of the kids, you free the animals.
yeah,
you know?
and you made the point about Rose like being the audience's entry point in this movie in the way Finn was in the last film.
Yeah,
And
That's good. That's a good point.
Yeah.
especially now that Finn's become the war hero, so then he gets partnered up with the new audience
That's-
point of view.
I would have loved to see Poe and Finn go on this adventure, but at the same time, it's more important that Rose goes on it because Rose is just a sort of maintenance worker who gets to elevate to this other level. She is that little kid at the end. She is the someone who
Oh,
can
don't get me
step
wrong,
up.
I
and
think,
Yeah.
I think she's a good character. Don't get me wrong, but
But you would have that
Again-
point that you just made would have still worked if you had Finn and Poe. They still would have talked to the kids. You still would have had the final scene. You still would have inspired hope across the galaxy.
If you got that, what do you do with the end shot, which me and Josh
It's
both
so integral to
adore.
like, the whole...
You can still have it though. That still works because of the logo. He has the Rebel ring on, so we know that again that story is out there. Like if your point is that a wider galaxy is aware of
Was
the
that not
actions of
Rose's
these two
ring?
sides.
Yeah, it's Rose's ring.
Well, it
you
depends
just
what
have
point
a-
you want to make.
I just think
Well-
there's ways you can have a kid with a broom and a ring on at the end of that film without having to spend nearly an hour with a completely pointless.
If your point is that it impacts the wider galaxy, like and it inspires hope, you get that by a young child wearing the Rebel ring. You get that regardless.
Well, Cleary was saying at what point in this film do they inspire hope? And if you take that out, then you're essentially right because you don't get to see that properly happen. This is Rose directly interacting with people and spreading that hope directly. If you take that out and just have someone hear it through hearsay, you're like, well, what's the sort of point? We flat out get the answer that when Leia calls for help, no one's going to come. So no one's asked. So we know the whole last generation just doesn't care. So to inspire this new generation with the sort of mentality of, oh, we can fight against this, that's what's going to win the war.
Look, don't get me wrong, if that kid turns out to be like the saviour of the galaxy on his own, I think they've done that pitch perfectly. But if the whole idea is the rest of the galaxy is going to be like, you know what, we can overturn the First Order. Why? Did you not hear? They ran away from them 3 times successfully. Did you not hear?
That thing at the end feels more causal than thematic. Like at the end, he happens to have the same ring. It's more of a causal thing. It's not like, well, like I said, if you took that whole chunk out and then he has the Rebel ring, then it's like, okay, he believes in the rebels. He does what Rey does. When it's like, oh, I thought it was a myth, like because the kids are talking about the story anyway.
Yeah, but I'd say that's the point. Like now he knows it's not a myth. He's seen it in action. So
Do you think once the third film comes out, maybe you'll look back on this? No, I'm not saying that should be necessary for this to make sense.
James said this to me before. Like, it's setting up all this, setting up all that. Well, then if it's setting up stuff for the third film, then why do I have to pay to watch this one? Like, I'll just pay. I'll pay extra when I've seen the third one.
There's also a problem with that because, like a middle chapter should, but it should be the connective tissue between two movies, and this one actively disregards almost everything that The Force Awakens tried to set up.
It continues the arcs of Rey, Kylo Ren, and Luke. Who are like the 3
No,
separate
it
characters.
completely changes their arcs.
How does it change that?
Rey's whole arc is she's going to learn to use the Force, and there's this mystery behind her parents. She doesn't learn to use the Force; she just knows how to do it, and her parents aren't a big deal.
Yep.
Kylo Ren, his whole thing, to me, I thought was the overarching thing of the whole 3 films was going to be his inner turmoil between the light side and the dark side, and his role he has between his family and Snoke. He's all right. He's just a bad guy now, which I should say I think is much more interesting than how they would have done it with Snoke. The main takeaway from this, the main positive, is I think Kylo Ren is one of the most, if not the most fascinating protagonists Star Wars has ever had. Antagonist, sorry.
What are you going to say?
I can't remember now.
Snokes Death. We should just very quickly talk
Yes.
about that because I know
We should wrap this at some point.
I've been going back and forth with James on the whole Snokes Death thing. I thought it was a waste of the character because they set it up where there was so much more to learn about him. But at the same time, I think having him out of the picture will make for better films because
Yes.
I'd say Kylo Ren's a much better.
I would argue
character.
there is no character, and he was alongside the Raftars, he was the worst thing in Force Awakens.
But again, like they clearly set that up in the first film as
Yes.
be all this mystery behind him and things we're going to learn about him, and a separate writer and director just come in like, nah.
Now
Yeah.
you raised a very good point about the scene where he dies,
I do that.
which
Every now and then.
which was if you taken out literally one shot.
Yeah, if you just take that shot of the lightsaber turning, the moment it would have gone from because James said the way that worked for him was it was like no, he's not, he can't. Snoke's going to stop him doing that. Like you're aware of it happening, but I just think if I can see you turning the lightsaber and it's all on that, and then you just hear the lightsaber go on.
You still have the reveal shot where it zooms out and it's through him.
Yeah, but
so
you
would
knew
still
it was
have
turning.
Yeah.
Like you still got that reveal shot, but like it would have just come out of absolutely nowhere. I thought it would have been brilliant. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a director or anything, so
It's true.
I'm sort of conflicted about that because that would be cool, but at the same time, I'm with James in that there is that sort of tension of is Snoke going to figure
I think
out
again it's subjective. I think it's what you like.
Yeah.
If the enjoyment of that scene was thinking Snoke's going to catch him here, this is really, if that's where the dramatic tension came from for you, great, you got what you wanted
I
out
think
of that.
either way it would have worked. I think it's a great twist either way.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
you just don't see it
that
coming.
whole scene with the 3 of them, and that I think that's the strongest part of the film. I really
Yeah, when they team
Alright.
up is
Yeah.
the coolest thing alongside Yoda. But yeah.
So before we go longer than the actual film, let's just have general comments overall. Looking back now, we've discussed all these contentious points over The Last Jedi. What did you make of it?
I still love it. Like, I loved it when I came out of the cinema, and the more I think about it, the more I love it.
Will you go back and see it again?
Yes, I've already got tickets to go see it again. So, I know like it's not a perfect film, but I think everything it does right and the characters and the narrative and the themes and the way it pushes all of those things forward, it works enough for me that those issues that may exist don't matter for me.
Strangely enough, I'm with James on this. Because,
No.
but I concede a lot of what you said is very valid, and I agree that Cantor Bright as a part of the film sort of doesn't work as well as the rest, but what it adds to in like that end shot, that kind of makes it doesn't really matter. A lot of the tonal inconsistencies, I don't think robbed it. If it did rob it of anything, didn't rob it enough to make it a bad movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's a difficult one because I mean I can see where you're coming from in a lot of these points, but I don't think they're as. I don't think they make it.
It didn't bother you. That's fine.
You just brush them off.
I just walk out of it and. Yeah.
Okay. Cleary, with your Kylo Ren scar on your wrist there.
Like I said at the start, I really wish I was on that side of the table because I really, really do want to like this, and perhaps in time on a second viewing or after a while I might. But my initial thoughts coming out of the cinema were hugely disappointing. There's a lot of issues with it which I thought were needless, and the main problem I've got with the whole discourse behind it is precisely what these two have just said. Doesn't matter. Like, I think the problem is a lot of people aren't putting the level of scrutiny on this film that we'd be putting on anything else, and I think a lot of the praise for it is just not like being fair. Like, I would love to praise it blindly, but I guess I'm just not that level of a fan that I can just ignore the stuff because I want this, and this. I got it. It's fine. The rest doesn't matter, which seems to be like what a lot of the counter arguments are to this. Like, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. It doesn't matter. And ultimately it doesn't, does it? But
yes, it does.
But if we're talking about
why are we even here?
If we're talking
going to say that,
if we're talking about this as a film, and giving it the level of scrutiny we would give to any other film, there was a lot of things that didn't make sense, that didn't work, and overall, I was really disappointed by it.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, the more I've thought about it, I've disliked it less. Like the things that I like are literal moments. Like I like Yoda, I like Kylo and Rey teaming up. But they're literal single scenes. Like if I think of the overall movie and my thoughts throughout it, it was a mix of like, well, what's going on? Why do I care? I'm bored. I'm waiting for the stuff that was advertised in the trailers. I hate this comedy, and I just want to get to the stuff that I know I was expecting because that's what was heavily marketed. The problems are structural and are huge for me, like whether it's timeline-wise or things like Finn and Rose, the lack of Poe, my favorite character, just being stuck on a ship for the whole movie. Like there are massive gaping problems with it for me, and they're patched up slightly by my intense love of Star Wars, but it's not enough to actually make me go, I really love this film. Like I can get into a subjective hole and be like, it's cool, there's a bunch of Star Wars stuff and that's neat, but I think you have to go down that to even say anything positive about it, because there are a lot of really basic filmic problems with it, and they're the ones that shine through, and I noticed immediately as I was watching.
I think where I am now is that there were a couple of bits in that film where I had a really, really good time in the cinema, which is all a film is supposed to deliver for you, but I wouldn't agree with that, but I don't think it's a good film.
Well,
at the moment.
As if I need to say any more or even encourage this. Of course, let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.
I don't have to. You don't feel like...
No, let us know.
And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. There is only one way we can wrap up this video, and that is with the light and the dark side touching hands.
Do it the way they did, where it's like,
whoa! Thank you very much for watching.
Hello, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Aren't you good? While you're here, we have other channels that are probably also quite nice, so why not give one of those a little watch? You never know, you might find something you like. Or, who knows, I might be there as well. Ooh, spooky.